A terrifying night. Hello. Today I am going to share with you one of the worst experiences in my opinion. First of all, it took place on Wednesday, August 27th, around 2 a.m. We were on the road to my boyfriend's house that evening. There were only two of us in the house. We had carefully closed the gate, the shutters, and the front door beforehand. Then we settled down, we put our things down. For my part, I headed to the toilets. Since the beginning of the week, me and my boyfriend felt that the atmosphere was weird. That evening, after putting down my things, I went to the toilet and I felt myself being directly observed by something. At first, I didn't pay attention to it, but at one point, I turned my head towards the toilet window, which overlooked the garden. Knowing that there was no sill on this window and that there was about 1.9 meters between the floor and the window, that's when I saw eyes looking at me. They were orange-brown and just stared at me. I thought it was a hallucination because it was late and maybe fatigue was playing a role, but I still got closer to check if it was indeed a hallucination or if it was real. As there were only two of us, I was not at all reassured. As I got closer, I saw that it was eyes staring at me. So I turned off the light, but the eyes were still there. Then suddenly I let out a cry of fear. I was horrified. My heart stopped. I ran off to join my boyfriend. We locked ourselves in my room and tried to reassure ourselves that maybe it was an animal, but that was impossible. So we called a family and left the house because we weren't sure what was going on. When leaving, we locked the gate securely. The next day, we came back to see the place, and upon arriving, the gate was once again open. We went in and walked around the garden. This is where we noticed a marble table placed below the toilet window. On it, we could see traces of legs and knees superimposed, as if someone had climbed up to look out of the window. What was odd was that there were no signs of a violation, no footprints, nothing at all, except this mark on the table, the eyes I had seen in the dark, and this open gate, even though we had closed it tightly. We left and decided to take our minds off things by going to a party in the evening. The next day, we wanted to come back anyway to check because there were a lot of burglaries going on at the moment, and we were afraid that someone would try to enter the house. When we returned, we noticed that a room in the house was lit. However, we had turned everything off. It was very suspicious. It was not due to electricity because the switch was indeed in the on position. Even more disturbing, no traces of footsteps in the house nor outside. It was really strange. Since we were alone in the house, we had also noticed unusual and strange smells which had not existed before. However, everything was airy, but this disturbing smell persisted. I constantly had the feeling of a presence, as if someone was there. To this day, I still don't know what happened. I couldn't tell if it was really someone, a hallucination, or something else. But that moment was awful and terrifying. I felt a deep unease and intense unease at that moment. I would like to know what you think, because we are still very confused about what happened that night, and we are still looking for answers to our questions.
Just after I finished high school, 1990s, I was in a band with a few other guys. One of them was friends with someone who owned a local AM radio station. After the station finished all of its live programming for the night, everyone would go home and they would switch to a pre-recorded track of music and ads that would play through the night. The radio station had been in continuous operation since the 1930s and had a ton of professional recording equipment, much of which was not even being used anymore, just sitting in the basement untouched. The owner of the station gave us a set of keys and let us go there after hours to practice playing and record our music. The first night I was there, right around 3 a.m., suddenly things started to feel kind of weird. The whole room got noticeably chillier, and I had these odd prickling sensations. When I commented on it, the other guys, who'd been going there for a while already, and the one who knew the owner had grown up in and around the radio station, laughed and said, "Oh, that's just Gene." Gene, I discovered, had been the sort of jack of all trades for the radio station back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Handyman, custodian, electrician, fixing the plumbing, audio technician. He did a little bit of everything. He basically was the guy who could be counted on to keep the place running no matter what. He actually lived in an apartment above the station itself. He would come downstairs to start work at 3 a.m., getting everything prepped and ready for their early morning broadcast. Sometime in the late 1970s, he passed away, seemingly peacefully in his apartment up above the station, but apparently missed the memo on that and just kept coming to work anyway. His apartment was still mostly untouched. We had keys for the whole building, including his apartment, and visiting it felt very surreal. Very old, dusty furniture and carpet, wallpaper peeling and showing signs of age, but still somehow felt lived in, even though nobody had lived there in nearly 20 years. Anyway, most nights that we were there past 3 a.m., that same routine would happen. Chilly air, odd feeling sensations. It didn't happen every time, but more often than not. Frequently, we'd be playing something and then we'd all stop because we felt it at the same time. And someone would check the time. Sure enough, it was 3 a.m., right on time. After we'd been doing this for several months, we were recording a demo. I was really struggling getting the sound I wanted just right with a Fender Rhodes. The other guys decided to call it a night, and they left me with the key to figure out my recording setup and then lock up when I was done. I wasn't afraid of Gene, but I definitely intended to be long gone by 3 a.m. I didn't really want to have a solo experience with him.
A big thunderstorm rolled in as the guys were leaving, but I didn't really think anything of it. I went back down to the basement and worked on my recording setup. Around 1:30 a.m., I guess lightning must have hit the transformer for the block or something. There was a terrific bang sound, and all of the power in the building died. I'll not lie, I was definitely scared. I was deep in the bowels of the building with no lights on, and though I'd been there a few months, I wasn't that confident about navigating it in the dark, and I had no idea where the breakers were or anything like that. I decided I would make my way out, lock up, drive home, and then call my bandmate to let him know what had happened, so that he could contact the owner and let him know the power had gone out. I had gathered up my things as best I could, and had made it as far as the door to the studio room in which I was recording, when suddenly I felt the temperature drop and the Gene feeling very strongly. I knew it was way before 3 a.m., but the feeling was unmistakable. Then I heard it. Footsteps coming down the hall. Then I heard the footsteps stop right outside the door where I was standing. I will admit I was pretty freaked out. I just called out, explaining what I was doing there, and ending with something like, "And I have no idea how to get the power back on, so I'm just gonna sit tight in here and let you do your thing." I fumbled my way back to my chair and sat, holding my breath. I didn't hear any more footsteps, so I wasn't sure if he was still standing there or what. After about 5-10 minutes, or one eternity when you're desperately trying to hold your breath, I heard a click, and my heart just about froze. I thought the door was opening, but the door stayed closed, and then I heard 2 more clicks, and then from upstairs, the sound of the system coming back on. Another click, and lights way down the hall came back on. 2 more clicks, and lights in my room finally came back to life. I quickly gathered my things again, left, locked up, and drove home. I called my bandmate to let him know what had happened, and he groaned and said, "Oh, if it all went down, that means the broadcast stopped. I'll have to go in and get it back on the air." Then he paused and turned on his radio to find the station was live after all. It was running about 15-20 minutes behind where it should have been, but it was live. Gene had, apparently, saved the day. That was definitely my most intense encounter with Gene, or with any kind of paranormal anything. After that, I didn't volunteer to stay behind by myself at the station anymore. Overall, it was, relative to some of the experiences I've heard from others, super tame and safe, but it definitely did feel very hair-raising at the time.
The station has changed hands a couple times since then and no longer records any live or original programming. It's all just simulcast from Sun's other station now. I don't know if Gene's apartment is still intact. After COVID lockdown, the town, about an hour west of New York City, just over the Pennsylvania border, became kind of a bedroom community for New Yorkie commuters, and residential housing prices skyrocketed. So I wouldn't be surprised if the new owners decided to renovate the apartment and find some new renters. But it's definitely something I still think about every time I'm in that neighborhood. Hope you enjoyed reading about my experience with Gene, the friendly local radio station handyman.